In this lecture, we are going to learn how to handle events in class-based component. React has the same events as HTML, such as click, mouse over, change, so on. React events are written in camel case. Now, let us see the difference in implementing the events in HTML and in React. In HTML, if we want to implement onClick event, then we simply used to add an attribute to the button like onClick. After that, we used to call that function as the syntax shown over here. Next, if in React we want to implement onClick event on a button, then we write onClick attribute as a camel case. After that, we give the reference of the function by writing the function name. Now, let us see how to implement events and different ways to pass the argument in the function. Now, let us get rid of this and create a class-based component. So we can use a shortcut to create a class-based component. We can use RCE React class-based component export. If you don't have this extension installed in VS Code, you can go to this extension and search for ES7 React Redux. So just install this one and we can use the snippet for React and React Native. Now let us come back over here and let us create one button. So in this button, let us right click, and once we click this button, it should call to a method. So let us create one method call, and once we click this button, it should call this method. Now, so let us use onClick. In React, we have to keep in mind that the attribute should be in camel case. So we have to write onClick in camel case, and we have to point to this function. So we can point this by using this keyword in class-based component, then the name of the function, simply like this. Now, let us put an alert over here, alert hello. Now let us save it, refresh the browser. We see we got a button over here, and once we click on this, we get an alert. Fine. Now let us see what we are getting if we alert this keyword over here. We have already learned about this keyword, so let us save this and refresh. We are getting undefined, but this should represent to the component in which it is used. Now, to change the functionality of this keyword inside this function, we have two options. Either we can use the bind keyword, or we can transform this normal function to an arrow function. So first let's see how we can change this keyword functionality to represent this component using bind keyword. So here we can simply write dot bind, and after that here we need to pass the object to which it should point. So here we'll pass this. In this keyword will represent this component. So inside this function also it will represent to this component. Now let us save this, click over here, we are getting an object. Now let us see what object we are getting. So we can place a console over here. Save it. Now let's go to console. Once we click over here, we are getting this component object. So fine. So we have changed this functionality inside the function. Now let us see the same using an arrow function. So let us remove this bind keyword, and instead of this normal function, let us convert to an arrow function. And if we will save this, refresh. Now if we click on this button, we are getting the same object of this component. So we have two options, either using the bind keyword or by using an arrow function. Now let us see how we can pass the argument to this method. So again, to pass an argument, we have two options. We can either use the arrow function or we can use the bind keyword. So let us see first using an arrow function. So over here, if we'll write one argument a, and from here if we'll pass quotation a, and let us alert this and comment this, and if we'll save, you can see as soon as this component gets rendered, this method is called. We have not clicked this button, then also this method is getting fired. Why it is happening? It's because if we'll use an arrow function and we'll pass an argument like this, it will call this function as soon as the component is mounted in the browser. To stop the execution of this function as soon as the component is mounted in the browser, we have to use arrow function over here. What this will do, this will return a promise to this on click, and it will not directly call to this method when the component is mounted in the browser. So let us save this, refresh the browser. Now it is not getting fired as soon as the component is rendered in the browser. Now let us click on this, we are getting the output. Now let us use bind keyword and see. So let us convert this to a normal function. And over here, let's get rid of arrow function and simply will pass bind. And in this, we have to pass this keyword and if we'll save this, refresh, we are getting the same result using the bind keyword. Now, suppose we want to pass the event to this function, so we can do it by an arrow function. So if we need to pass an event to this function, if we'll use a bind keyword, the last argument will be our event. So if we will console this event, ev, save this. Over here, we are getting alert A, and you can see we are getting the event object. But instead of this, if we'll use an arrow function, let us convert this to an arrow function. And let's remove this bind keyword. Now, in this, we have to manually pass the event object. So once we write arrow function over here, so we'll get an event object, and this event object we have to manually pass to the function. Now I will save it, refresh the browser, we are getting the alert A. Now we are getting the same result. So we have to keep in mind, if we want to pass the event object, if we are using the arrow function, then we have to manually pass it. Else, if we are using the bind keyword, it will automatically pass the event object as the last argument. That's it in this lecture. From the next lecture, we'll be starting with the functional component.